Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the Impractical Machinist podcast.
I actually kind of like walk-in work, but,
Yeah?
well, I like it and I hate it.
Every now and then we get a yahoo that wants a stinking hex bearing put on.
A yahoo?
Yeah, that's the polite word for some of these folks.
If there's anything you should spend money on, it should be your CAM software.
Brad, does your programmer make setup sheets for you?
No, he doesn't.
Man, what a jerk!
Right? 3D printing sucks.
Your Instagram page is called Machiningiscool, not 3D printing is cool.
Follow up.
Yeah.
Talk shit.
Tell us how dumb we are.
We're machinists, we're not podcast presenters. My name is Patrick, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Cameron and Brad. We, the Impractical Machinists, started as an Instagram group chat that I created around a year ago. It began as a place to just collect and funnel the magnificent amount of talent in the instant machinist community. It steadily grew to include around 50 individuals, about 20 or so, which are active, and it's made up of a mix of machinists, programmers, and shop owners and shop managers alike. A few of us started joking about starting a podcast, and it just so happened that Practical Machinist was looking to start a podcast at the same time, and here we are.
First one. First episode, guys.
Yep.
Yeah,
You ready for it?
I reckon.
You reckon?
You ready for
How
it?
you guys doing?
Good. How about you?
Pretty good.
I'm doing good, Cam.
How's it going up there in Tennessee, Pat?
Decent. The weather's actually been nice lately. It's not been super hot or humid like it was.
What are we, an hour and a half away?
Yeah.
Still mountains, though.
Yeah.
Nothing like Minnesota.
Yeah, you guys don't get the snow like we do?
Yeah.
Right.
We don't have...
You're missing out.
I mean, I thought
Yeah,
the world was going to end last winter when we got 8 inches of snow. That ain't nothing for you.
No, that's when you plug the truck in and keep it warm overnight.
I heard y'all have really good
Yeah.
roads.
Oh, yeah. That's when you really learn if you can drive or not.
Right.
Pat, I was browsing your Instagram today, and
Mhm.
I saw your, what do you call it, Walk-in Wednesdays?
Yeah, so
Yep.
this guy brought in a drive shaft. I don't remember what for. Probably a tractor or something like that. He brought it in, and he had an old broken one there with him, and he had this new one. Basically, that shaft it had the flange, the bearing journal, and a slightly smaller section that was most of the shaft. And he just basically wanted me to match the other one. The only thing that was tricky about the job is the shaft was kind of hard. I don't know what it was, but it was the way it turned. It was probably in the 40s Rockwell, something like that. But the manager took that job in, and he said, we can just take a hammer and a pin and drive the studs out. And I tried to do that. Of course, I'm not the strongest guy in the world, but I couldn't get them out, and we don't really have a press set up to where I could press them out. And I noticed, hey, you know what? This stinking thing's got a center hole in both ends. Let me see if I can turn it between centers. And I have to say, whoever made that, they did a good job, because when I mounted it between centers, I mean, it was like a thousandth of run out on the journals. It worked out perfectly. That's one of the few times that a walk-in job worked out like that.
You guys do a lot of walk-in stuff like that, or
Yeah, we do.
is it random?
It usually picks up about this time, so like April or May, when the farmers start waking up from hibernation. They all start bringing in their equipment that's broken from last year. The owner of where I work, he's got a soft spot for farmers, so it's hard to say no unless Farmer Jim comes in here with a $5 bushing that he wants you to make for him. That's when you kind of got to be like, listen, man, you might want to get that down at Napa.
Yeah.
Right?
But
If you can
we
make it,
do.
buy it.
Exactly. And the funny thing is, the normal layperson doesn't know what machining is, really. We all know that. So when a farmer or just anybody, somebody that works at the farmer's co-op or whatever calls and they're like, hey, I got a whatever that I need something done to, you really just may as well just be like, bring it on down, we'll look at it, because it'll be totally different from what they tell you.
Yep. Yep. I've been there.
I had a while back, we had about the same time, I think somebody called and was like, I've got an auger that I need a hole drilled in. And he brought it down here, and no, what he wanted was he wanted an adapter made to go from a skid steer auger drive to a tractor auger drive. But nothing like what he said. But that's why you don't commit to something over the phone.
Yeah.
Every now and then we get a yahoo that wants a stinking hex bearing put on, and that's
A yahoo?
that's the polite word for some of these folks. Love them to death, but man, when somebody comes in here and they want a hex drive bearing put on a hay bale roller or something, when I mean everybody's gone to round bearings, that's a pain. But
Oh yeah.
we do it.
How do you quote this stuff, or do you just kind of time, kind of an hourly rate, or?
Usually it's time and material. Well, a lot of times we have to give them an estimate because they don't want to run up $1,000 bill on something they want to pay $100 for. I have to say one of the one of the best things you can do if you're in a shop that does walk-ins is before you get to any kind of amount of detail. The guy brings in the part. He's like, "I'd like this," or "I'd want this done to this," and you're like, "Okay, we can do that. What is there any kind of price range you're looking at wanting to pay for that?" Because as soon as you say that and they tell you, I mean, 20, $30, unless he's a friend of the owner or something like that, you probably need to tell him to hit the road politely.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
it ain't even worth talking to him at that point.
$20 to $30 is like 10 minutes worth of work.
Well,
Exactly.
you already owe me $20-$30 for walking.
Exactly.
Exactly.
You'd rather be.
Yeah. And unfortunately, a lot of farmers, I mean, I love them to death and we got to have them, but they tend to be a little entitled. So they want a discount, they want a freebie, or if you did a job for them in the past where you charged them a proper amount, they'll kind of hold that over your head. Man, you charged me $1,100 for that shaft last year. Can't you throw me a bone on this one?
I actually kind of like walk-in work, but
Yeah.
well, I like it and I hate it. I like it whenever I can actually spend some time doing it, just because it's a nice thing. We hardly ever do it, so it's nice to break things up with some kind of like, not so critical job, loose tolerances, or like you just make two things fit together or whatever. Just machine a little bit off of this surface, and that's all they need. Easy stuff like that. So I like that kind of stuff just to break things up. Also, I mean, in general, I just like helping people out. So when somebody shows up at the shop and they're like, "Hey, can you machine this thing for me, or like put a hole in this thing for me, or whatever," and you can tell it's something where like you need a machinist to do it. They can't just take it to like a fabrication shop or do it themselves. I feel bad turning them away because I don't really have anybody to turn them to when they leave.
Mhm.
So I'm like,
Yeah.
well, good luck on your endeavors. I don't know of any other
Right.
machine shops around here, so see ya. Because like,
Yeah, you don't have very many shops around you, do you?
no, I think the closest one that I know of that would actually do that sort of thing. Well, and I don't even think they would do just like random walk-in stuff. But anyways, they're like 45 minutes away, so that's it. I know of a couple other machine shops in our town, but they're not like regular job shop stuff. So they're not really going to be doing walk-ins. And yeah, other than that, I know of like one that's a job shop.
Yeah. What's the name of the shop you work at?
Lyle's Precision and Machine, or Lyle's Precision Machine and Tool. It's Inc. It's a mouthful. I just call it Lyle's Precision.
Yep.
Yeah, but North Georgia, we've got like I think we're at 6 employees now, including the owner, who still works every day with us. It's a small company, so we have that nice benefit, I guess. Well, I guess it's depending on who your owner is, it's a benefit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. He's our best lathe guy. I know that much.
Manual or CNC?
Both, really. I mean, nobody else really does any manual stuff. I'll do a little bit here and there, but I think I've made like actually fully machined manually like 2 or 3 parts ever. Everything else has been CNC. Now I've done some other stuff, like stock prep for a job, or prepping a weldment, or like a shop project, random stuff like that. So I can turn a lathe on. I can turn some stuff I know when my surface footage is too high or too low, or my feed's too aggressive or something. I'd say I could generally turn within 1,000th if I need to. So I would say that's decent enough for somebody who doesn't manually machine.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's it's a simple process as far as getting down to that thousandth. You just make a few cuts before you get there that are going to be the same as your finished cut, and just keep dialing
Yeah.
it. So that's the way I do it,
Mhm.
anyways.
Yeah.
Some manual mill stuff. Usually, if I'm on the manual mill, it's something that is going to be a pain in the ass to do on the CNC. So, like,
Mm.
what degree was it? There was a casting that I did. I don't remember exactly what the feature was, but I needed to drill a hole at like a 12-degree angle off the side of a boss. And so it's like, the parts, a round part like this, and there's a boss coming up in the center. On the outside of that boss, it just needed a hole drilled at like 12 degrees. It might have been tapped. I don't remember. It's been a while. But so something like that, instead of like trying to fixture the part to where I can have the spindle at 12 degrees off of that boss, I just tilt the head on the manual mill and
Yeah.
do it
Yeah.
that way. It's a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
Um,
There's a lot of stuff we do like that where it's maybe there's actually some parts we do kind of on a repetitive basis where it's just a disc and it's got either a 4 or 5 hole pattern around it, but they're at an odd angle, 8.57 degrees or some nonsense like that. And they don't have to be that accurate, but
yeah,
and that we don't have a 5 axis, and it's certainly not worth making any kind of fixture for. So a lot
yeah,
of times, we just set up a dividing head, cock the head over, or cock the dividing head over, and stick a drill in it.
yeah. I will say now, so we got a trunnion table from Martin Trunnion Tables. Um,
Mm.
thing's awesome. It's a beast. The job I was just talking about doing on the manual mill. Now that we have that thing, I would just slap that on the trunnion and rotate it to
Yeah.
whatever
Mm.
degree I need, and then treat that as if it was fixtured in the machine at 12 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
Um, granted, if it's just one, drilled hole, I probably wouldn't do that. I'd probably just tilt the head on the manual and spend 1 minute trimming it back in, but maybe
Yeah.
two. I'm not super good at it, but
It depends on how close you're
It's
looking to get it to.
yeah. Well,
it's nice having a machine you can turn something like
right.
that. I do it a lot on my horizontal. It's nice just to be able to fixture something and turn it at whatever angle you
Mm-hmm.
need quick rather than trying to build a plate or something
I actually
to hold it up.
I actually used it as an angle plate the other day. We had some parts that
Uh,
just another. I don't remember the diameter, but anyway, there's some round parts that needed some side holes on the OD of the part, and so instead of actually like setting up a angle plate on another mill and doing all that, that mill was open at the time, so I just turned it to 90 degrees. And the nice thing about that trunnion table is I had them do the Saunders uh, fixture plate pattern. So we actually have a Saunders
mm,
plate fixture plate on that machine. So I copied that pattern onto the trunnion table, and it's actually a sub plate, so you can take that off if you want to, and it's got ball locks all over it, so you can make other fixtures if you wanted to put them on there. But so I've got half-inch dowel holes and half 13 tapped holes every inch and a quarter, and it's offset. So every five
mm,
eighths essentially there's a hole. But yeah,
nice.
I turned that thing to 90 degrees and just fixtured my part right on there, and that was it. It was just a matter of cranking a hand wheel.
That's pretty
Yeah.
slick, man. I like that.
Yeah, yeah. And there's also a hydraulic brake on that thing, which is legit. So
Mm,
it uses, like the pneumatic actuation of uh, the actual rotary to actuate a air over hydraulic cylinder, which supplies hydraulic pressure to the brake on the other end of the trunnion. So now you've got both ends locking anytime the rotary locks.
mm. Wow,
So
that
that
is
seems to help
nice.
a lot too. Yeah, and it's like 3,000 psi or something. That thing builds up. It's pretty
Hmm.
pretty crazy. There's a pressure gauge on there on the brake.
You have mainly Doosan mills there, right?
Yeah, yeah, we're pretty much all Doosan. We've got one machine that's not besides our manual stuff, but we've got
Mm,
a Johnford lathe. I think it's an SL30 from like
mm,
2007, and I mean honestly, that thing kicks ass. You can hold tenths, no problem. Throughout a day, you might have to bump it up or down a little bit,
mm-hmm.
a tenth or two here and there. But I mean, if you're running and checking your parts as you go, you could be plus 5 tenths minus nothing and not have an issue.
I was just
It's pretty good.
curious what kind of rotary, what kind's on yours?
Uh, I want to say it's Sam Choli, like 250C or something like that.
Mm,
I know it's Korean. Fun fact, I want to throw this in there real quick. So when the Sam Chili guy came to install the rotary on our machine after we got it, he set the whole fourth axis stuff, wired it all in. So he was saying that the color of those Sam Choli rotaries matches the Mercedes of the owner's car, or like the owner's Mercedes car. Same
Oh,
paint job. So it's like silver with silver flake in it. Apparently, it's the same paint spec as his Mercedes. Yeah,
that's really something. You wouldn't
yeah,
expect that.
yep.
That's kind of flashy for something to go inside a machine.
Right.
Huh.
Now, yeah, I mean, now all the paint's like peeling off of it from putting the chips in there,
Yeah.
especially the face mill chips. Like they just plowing through steel and slinging face mill chips right at the thing,
Oh yeah.
and yeah, it gets a beating. I will say, anybody that's got a rotary that stays in the machine, you keep your fourth axis in there, and you got a 3D printer, 3D print a cover to go on the faceplate of your rotary, or like we have a rock lock base on the rotary. That's how our trunnion attaches, and obviously you can attach anything to that. So I printed I like modeled and printed a cover to go on our rock lock base on there. And you especially want to protect that. It's aluminum. It's anodized aluminum, and I've had drilled like from I was running like an 1.75 inch inserted drill in the machine. So there's that. But big chips flying over and hitting that thing, just gouge it. It
Yeah.
takes
3D print with Marvel Green, right?
right Marvel Green.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm gonna claim green as Marvel Green.
Yeah, that's
I
actually
love
what
it.
Bamboo advertises it as on their website. Marvel Green.
We need to get a filament that's got black and green in it at the same time.
Be like what are those called? Have you seen those filaments where the whole spool is just multiple colors? So as you print,
Yep.
the print changes color.
Oh,
Yeah, I've printed
sweet.
a couple of them.
What's that called?
They're like dragons for my kids. I don't know what they're called. I got one that's like a purple, pink, and it's pretty cool
Yeah.
when it's printed.
Is that like
Yeah.
a color shift?
Yeah, it's like it just
I don't
changes.
know what
Well,
it's called.
it's not color shift like you look at it from a different angle and it's a different color, but it's
Okay.
just gradient, I guess. So as you print, gradually changes from one color to the next.
Mm-hmm.
Dynamic color.
Yeah, that sounds
I think that's what they call them.
sounds legit.
Sounds about right.
Dual color.
I
That's
haven't
cool.
really done any like cool 3D printing stuff as far as like just stuff that's cool, I guess. It's all just been straight functional stuff.
Your Instagram page is called Machining is Cool, not 3D printing is cool.
Yeah, that's true. I don't care at all about 3D printing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess I can't say I don't care at all, but I care very little. I just want to put a model in there and press print, and it just pop out and be done and
Mm-hmm.
work right.
Yep.
I don't have the time or the interest to want to dig into all the 3D printing weeds.
Yeah.
And try to and the bamboo we got the Bamboo X1. That thing's legit, and the slicer on that thing's pretty good. I mean, I just for the most part throw a model in there and arrange it or orient it to how I think it should be,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
hit slice and hit print. I mean, it's pretty much.
That's
You got
cool.
the AMS with that too.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
That's honestly been probably our best investment this year. We've done a ton of stuff with that thing. We paint some of our parts. So instead of spending the time to tape off every individual part, say you've got 10 or 15 parts, I'll just 3D print a cover. It takes an hour.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, well, they go to paint. Like one of the guys goes to paint, and he's like, I noticed there's 10 or 15 of the same part. I could be like, wow, we could just 3D print something. It's like, all right, go do something else productive for an hour before this thing's done, and then you can go back to painting. And then,
Yep.
something productive is being done that entire time instead of spending 30 minutes trying to tape off parts that you're just going to peel the tape off of again later. It's legit.
Yeah, I got the same printer, and I've made a couple trays, just organizing trays for different stuff, mainly my helicoil tools.
I know those are cool,
but I've used it for support pieces. If I got a part that there's nothing left of it when it's done, I've printed the internals of it for it to sit and support itself,
almost like
a device,
almost like a pusher block.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I'll pull out all the cavities of the part, and I'll just a nice press fit, push it in there.
Yeah. Do you have? I know you've sent me like pictures or videos or something of the helicoil setup. Yeah, that's what.
With the color change, you can label them right, so you know which one's which.
Yeah, that's worth going and looking at. Because of that, I got the idea to do this. So, like with 6H thread tolerances. I got on Amazon and just bought a bunch of gauge pins and pin vices, or like the go no gauge, no go gauge. So I bought for all the common sizes we use, like M6, M8, 10, 12, M5 as well. And I'm gonna engrave the actual bodies of the no go gauge to whatever size they're supposed to be. Like if it's for an M6, put that on there. And then I'm going to 3D print trays for the go no go gauge and the thread gauge to just all be together. So anytime you run into a job that has an M6 thread or an M8 thread, you can just go grab that whole little contained thing, and you have your go no go gauge for your minor diameter and your thread gauge all in one.
Yep.
That's nice, Cam.
I'm just going to mimic what you did with the helicoil stuff.
Yeah, it's nice. I had so many of them helicoil handles sitting in a drawer, and I'd start sorting through them, trying to find the one I needed. And I don't know what I saw. I saw somebody else do some sort of tray, and I was like, oh, I bet I could do something with helicoils.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I got a little slot in there for the no-go gauge for that thread.
Yeah.
For the helicoil thread too.
Nice. Yeah. What do you think is, I guess, the most useful thing you've 3D printed? What's provided the most value?
Probably them trays.
Yeah.
There's nothing else that really pops to mind that I've done. I mean, some of the support stuff in the machines have been really nice. And if I plan ahead and I print it, sometimes I'll be programmed. I'm like, oh, I'm going to need to support this when I get to my third op or second op, and I'll start printing it before I even start the job, so then it's ready to go when I get there.
Yeah,
that's been really useful.
That planning ahead part. That step's pretty difficult, huh?
It is. I mean, there's been plenty of times where I'm sitting there putting a part in the machine, and I'm like, I got to hold this. And sometimes I'll stack up gauge blocks in between a cavity just to support it.
Yeah.
But if I think ahead, it's pretty nice and ready to go.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I would say, as far, just to throw it out there, because somebody could use this idea, I think it would be helpful. I would say the most useful thing, or at least what brings me the most satisfaction, is I 3D printed a guide that slides over the anvil of a mic to keep one end of your dial bore gauge like within this little guide as you're trying to dial your dial bore gauge in. You're trying to zero it, so you can do it one-handed. So I'll use one of the little vices that's made for the mics, the mic stand. Yeah, mic stand.
Yep.
Dial it to what I need, and then you basically just stick the one end. So imagine just like a sleeve that's over that anvil, and then the tip of the bore gauge goes into that sleeve, and because it's inside of there, it's going to rest against your anvil. So then you have the articulating end that you pop down between the spindle, and then you can dial in your dial bore gauge. You kind of move it around, but you're not trying to fight both ends at the same time. The one end is fixed. You just have to monkey the other end around and find your smallest point and zero it out there. That's been like the best thing ever. That was a game changer.
That sounds real handy, yeah.
And that shit, I printed like 4 of those things in like 5 minutes or 10 minutes. It's something I was like, oh man, this would be a really good idea. It was in the middle of doing it. I'm like, this would be a really good idea. Let me print this real quick. Hopped on, the computer, literally drew 2 circles, extruded it, like 3/8 of an inch or something, and then print.
You have to send that to me. I don't use dial bore gauges too often, but when I do, I'm always holding it against my stomach.
Oh no, yeah, it's such a pain. Do you have a mic stand?
I don't.
Oh man, you should get one.
That'd probably be the next.
I actually saw one on the Memorial Day sale on Haas, the Haas Tools website. They had a mic stand on there for like $20 or something. It's one that's got like a mag base on it, so you can activate the magnet, and then you just tighten a little thumb screw and it holds your mic for you.
I worked at a shop years ago that had a bore gauge setter, and it had it was almost like a vertical vise, and you would put your gauge blocks in there, and so it would set your distance you need. That was pretty cool. I've always told myself to order one.
I think that's more the proper way to do it.
Yep.
Because like if you think about it with mics, I mean, it doesn't take much, especially when you get into the bigger range. It doesn't take much for the mic to actually flex out. So even just the spring pressure of the articulating side of that bore gauge could be enough pressure to cause a tenth or two of difference.
Yep.
And so I think that setup is probably a lot more precise.
Yeah, I have a few times I've thrown in my horizontal where my vices are vertical, I've stuck gauge blocks in there and just kind of clamped on them and used it to
that's not a bad
set
idea.
it.
Never thought to do that. Yeah.
That's interesting that you guys mainly use mics to set them, because bear in mind, the owner of where I work is very old school. So he would probably have a stroke if he saw me doing that. I do it on occasion when I'm in a hurry and it's not that critical. But like usually when we break out the dial bore gauges, I mean, we're down to, plus or minus a thousandth or tenths or something,
Yeah.
we, and I actually, one of my mics, I've got a mix of different micrometers, but my 1 to 2 is a Brown and Sharp. And of all things, for some reason, that mic does not read correctly when I use it like a dial bore gauge setter. I've compared it versus a friend of mine has a coworker has a Mitutoyo mic, and we got totally different readings between the two of them. His was right, but my mic will read fine if you're using it as a micrometer. It's really odd. It's like it flexes, or there's backlash in the screw that because the pressure is different, it changes the reading. It's really odd, and boy, that drove us nuts for a few days one time. So we
I guess maybe that's why he doesn't want you zeroing on mics.
Exactly. He's probably seen that 100 years ago. To be fair, he's also very much a perfectionist in a way. You will not catch the man doing anything the easy way or the improper way just because it doesn't matter. He milled a set of stringers for his stairs. All right. He had.
I'm not gonna lie, I milled mine.
Really?
When I built my deck.
That's awesome. And I mean, it's really cool because, like in Mr. Gallian's case, he set up a 2x12 on the big Bridgeport that we had back here, and he set them up and milled them, and he didn't have to put a drop of glue or a nail or nothing in them. I mean, they just fit.
Yeah.
When it got cold or hot or something, I don't know how well they fit, but at the time it was perfect.
Yeah, when I built my deck, I designed everything in SolidWorks, every component of it, just to get it perfect. Yeah. And then I've never done stringers before, and I wanted it to wrap around the joist, and I drew it out, and it made sense, and I laid it out, and I'm like, I'm just gonna machine it out, and it slid in. Dude, it fit perfect.
I love it.
That's the thing. I used to like doing woodwork. I hate it now.
Yes.
Oh, I hate it too.
Stand it. It's like I got an easy button. I'll model it, program it real quick, and I can just load some tools up and press go, and I don't have to do anything. Then you're talking about getting in there and actually cutting all that stuff out by hand.
No right. Thanks. Yeah. Bust
I should.
Skill saw.
Right. I should. I did this before I had an Instagram at the shop. I built us a packaging table, so like for packaging parts to ship out and all that. But I modeled the whole thing in Fusion, and I even had basically at the end of it, I had a print for my entire packaging table. I had a cut list for every board, like 2x4 by 36 quantity of 12. So I basically took that in my garage, took my miter saw, cut all the pieces out for it, and then just assembled the whole thing. Yep. It was so much better doing it that way.
That's how I built my deck. And when I ordered my deck boards, the guy's like, well, you need to order 10% more for cut. And I'm like, no, I got it laid out. Like, I cut 3 feet off of this one, and that's going to go to my stair. Like, I know where every board's going. And in the end, I think I ended up with 6 inches or something.
Dang.
Nice. Well, yeah, it almost makes it to where you can kind of plan around, okay, I know I'm going to have 8-foot boards or 12-foot boards. What can I do to maximize how much I use of those? And most people don't do that. They just
no.
If I get a 2-foot drop off an 8-foot board or whatever.
I planned my whole deck around common size boards so I could make it work. And then I did it where I'm like, okay, should I jump up to a 24-foot board so I could cut 6 feet off and use that? I played with it for probably far too long to perfect it.
Yeah.
But like Cam said, I damn near just assembled it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. You put in a little work on the front end for that sort of thing, and it makes the back end a whole lot easier. Yeah. Now I try to do everything like that now. I mean, that applies to a lot of stuff. That applies to even being a programmer.
Yep.
Like doing setup sheets, you put in a lot of work on the front end on a good setup sheets. Make sure you have all the information like you think an operator could possibly need, and then on the back end, they can go set up the entire job, not have questions for you. Not you're not in the middle of trying to do something else and they come up like, hey, on this setup over here, like, what are you talking about? So it just flows a whole lot better.
Brad, does your programmer make setup sheets for you?
No, he doesn't.
Man, what a jerk!
Right?
I do the walk back and forth from machine to computer and just kind of glance at camera, see how things are going.
Yeah.
No wonder you're so skinny, all that back and forth.
Trying to save the trees and save my paper.
There you go.
I have actually thought about. I got a TV behind me. I've thought about broadcasting like my tool list and stuff to it because I can see that TV from all my machines. So then I can just look up there and see my tool list. But
you just need to put a laptop at each machine, remote desktop to your computer.
Yep, that would be nice.
Which, by the way, I figured out how to do for free. There's a lot of software out there for remote desktop and that costs money, which I guess if you need things to be encrypted or whatever, that's different. But Google Chrome, it's just search like Chrome remote desktop, and basically you'll log in onto the computer you want to be able to access, log into your Gmail account, and then just set up a passcode or a PIN for that computer. And then whenever you're somewhere else, you can pull up the remote desktop. You have to download the extension. But other than that, I mean, that's it. So like right now, I can pull up our CMM computer at the shop and program something from home, and it's just remote desktop for free. Yeah,
that's nice. I used to pay for I think it was called Log Me In.
Yeah,
for a while there, just so I could access remotely.
And and I think Windows has something too. I think it's just called Remote Desktop.
Yep.
But I don't remember how to set that up. I think you have to have like the IP address for the computer and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay, so. Yeah, most of my machines, I kind of try to keep common tools in there, so it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And when I'm programming, setting up and running it, I remember most of the time what I need. Most of the time I'm programming on the fly, so I'm programming. As soon as I'm done programming Op 1, I'm going to the machine, putting stock in and hitting go. So it's... God, I don't think I've pre-programmed a part in a long time.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
So if you had a choice, would you rather, because like I know sometimes just the way things end up working out is it's just more simple to program on the fly, or it's just more convenient. If you had the choice though, would you rather program a bunch of stuff ahead of time, or would you rather do it on the fly?
I like to do it on the fly because it seems like as I'm programming, sometimes I get these packages where I get 20, 30 different parts. So there's quantity of one, and if I'm programming on the fly, I can make adjustments based on the tooling that's going into it.
Yeah.
Where if I'm pre-programming, I mean, a lot of times I run out of tools. With my verticals, I got 25 holders. Sometimes I need 40 to get through a job. So I think about 2 years ago, I did pre-program a job. And by the time I got to like the 12th part, I was lost in what tools I needed, and I was pulling things out, putting stuff back in. But if I kind of build it as I go, I can just keep loading and going from part to part to part.
Yeah.
And never worry about swapping tools. And then once I get to a full carousel, that's when I kind of start organizing what parts I'm going to run. So if I got 4 more parts that's got an M6 in it, I might run them. And then I know I can remove that M6 because I got a new tab coming up that I need to keep in there.
And I feel like that makes sense when you're doing, part packages and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And 40 tools is a lot for a job.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
Most of the time it's because I get, over the 30 parts, there's 3 different reamers, 8 different taps. So then you get the drills, the different reamer size taps. It kind of gets to be a pain. And then sometimes I'll get into it where it's like, well, shit, I got to drill a 265 hole for something. I'll just interpolate it at that point.
Yep.
So, and as I go through the parts, that's where I can kind of make that determination while I'm going through it. And sometimes I might grab a part that I didn't plan on doing early on in the job, and I'll do that one first, or I'll push a job further or a part further out into it, where if I had it all pre-programmed, I'd feel like I had to follow everything right.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's the difference between just doing everything on your own and like having a plan for other employees to do stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like I need to have everything done ahead of time.
Yeah.
That's what I'm used to, even for myself. Like it's in my case, it's pretty rare that I actually program a job for myself and run it. I'm usually just programming or cranking handles. But even when I do, I'll usually do it all ahead of time, make a setup sheet and all that. Just, I guess, it sounds crazy, but just in the event that something happens between then and now, if for some, it's usually, it's a weird job if I've got to be the one to make it anyway. But like, if for some reason I get sick or whatever between now and then okay, it's not all in my head. But that's the difference too when you're mainly a programmer versus a machinist that programs versus, like in Brad's case, you're everybody, all that in a bag of chips.
Yeah.
And like talking about programming on the fly, we have two programmers here. I'm the lead programmer, and then we have a fellow named Casey that is our other programmer, and he's probably on a machine more often than not. Just depends on our workload. Where he came from before he started here was he basically operated like Brad does, where he did a little bit of programming for the other guys because they had more operators than anything. But more often than not, he was programming for himself and running the machine right next to it, using like old Mastercam. It blew his mind when he came here, and we had 4-year out of date SolidWorks and SolidCam. But it took some adjustment for him to get used to that because there's kind of there's an efficiency side to it, because if you sit there and program all at once, your spindles are idle, right? Unless you have a long runtime part that you can just kind of leave running. And in their case, in his case, they often didn't do that, and we don't either. So it's just a different approach. There's no wrong way to do it. I guess the right way is what gets you the most productivity.
Yeah, I've always wondered about how because I've heard of shops doing that, where it's like all the machinists kind of program their own work. Whether it's they program on like a conversational or just on a control or on a cam software. I always thought that was pretty inefficient because, like you said, the machine's just sitting idle while you're doing that. Mm-hmm. Especially if you're programming, on the control, doing conversational stuff. Granted, I've never really tried it, so maybe you can do that while the machine's running. I don't know. I've always just done cam.
Usually what I try to do with cam, it's been a while since I've done conversational stuff. Usually what I try to do is, like I said, I program, the first op, get that set up, get it running, and as it's running, I'm programming the second op. Mm-hmm. On quick cycle stuff, it's kind of a pain to do it. You're kind of going back and forth a lot. I feel like I can program pretty damn fast. I got a lot of automation set up in CamWorks for me to, most of the time I can keep up with the quick cycle stuff. But when I get into the long cycle stuff, heavy rough outs and stuff like that, what I'll typically do is I'll program, I usually use an adaptive clearance, so I can program a whole rough out of a part, and it might be a 3-hour rough out, and I can program that in minutes. Mm-hmm. So I'll get that programmed, get it set up, I'll get that running. And by the time that's done, I'll have everything else programmed and ready to go.
Yeah.
And typically that rough out, I'm leaving 15 on everything anyway, so I'm not too concerned about it.
Yeah. You're also a programming genius.
Yeah, you're quite the wizard.
Got to use what you have to make it more efficient.
Yep.
Yeah. It took me years to dig into it, but when I finally did, it was worth it.
Yep.
And of course, you use Fusion, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very much so the new generation, I reckon.
Well, now hang on a minute. Let me sidetrack for a second. The best machinist that I personally know is he's working at a shop just a few miles from here, and he worked here for a little while. He's used all kinds of stuff over the years because he's been machining for 30 years. But he's used some Mastercam and Gibbs Cam, I think, is what he used before he came here. Here he learned SolidCam. Now he's using Fusion. So here he is at 50 or so, and he's using Fusion for 5-axis work and everything. And I have to say, not that it's ever likely, but like if I ever try to start a shop or something like that, I would definitely start with Fusion. It seems like a strong software for what it is.
Especially if you're starting out for the price. I think it's pretty difficult to beat that price.
Absolutely.
Granted, you're locked into Well, I guess you can do it different ways. I think you can do 3-year subscriptions or something, which will probably give you some sort of discount. But on the whole, you're doing a yearly subscription. So I mean, they can jack that price up as much as they want to, and you're still going to keep paying it up to a certain
Yep.
extent. You know. So when I first started using Fusion, I think I got my first seat for like $350, and then the manufacturing extension was like 1,100 or 1,200.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So anyway, you're talking close to $1,500 for a year, which is nothing.
Yeah.
Especially considering the money you're making off of it.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what you have to look at.
But now I think it's up around $2,000.
That's what I always say to people too that complain about CAM software pricing. I mean, I do a 3-year term, and it was like $9,000. That included SolidWorks and CamWorks. So looking at $3,000 a year, it's a fraction of what I do in a year, and it's the starting point of every job I do.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I mean, I could save. Well, I mean, like you said, you're paying $2,000 a year. I mean, I could save $1,000 and sit there and probably struggle through it for a while. I mean, what's another $1,000? Just keep doing what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, especially when some of these big shops are pulling in 7 figures, what really does $3,000 matter?
Yeah. Well, I guess the difference then would be buying a seat for every person, because that's really when it gets expensive.
Yep.
$3,000 for one person a year, that's not so bad. But you got 5 people programming.
Yep.
Now you're already at $15,000 a year. I mean, every person you add, it goes up. So I guess I could see why people try to split hairs over price. But like you said, that's where every job starts. If there's anything you should spend money on, it should be your CAM software and your CAD software if you need it.
Yep.
Definitely.
Especially getting what your programmers are efficient at.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're not efficient and it's taking them an extra hour on every job to program it just because you wanted to save $1,000 a year, well, you're going to lose that in the long run.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It does not take long.
You'll lose that.
If I really want to save $1,000 a year, I could probably,
you buy less green shit.
I could do a lot of things. I could do a lot of things to save $1,000 a year. I mean, I could drop down and not use some higher end tooling and probably get the same same parts out of it, or maybe not throw away some of my scrap.
Yeah.
I mean, and really, I probably just my scrap chips alone, I probably covers my maintenance costs on CAD.
Yeah.
What's your take on saving scrap as far as solid scrap?
No, I machine it away.
Yeah.
I just saw somebody post, they were saw cutting something out, a solid chunk out there, saw cut it, and they put it back. I just machine it away.
Yeah, I think I saw the same thing you saw. It's like guys who save that one little chunk of wood, which I'm guilty of it. Everybody is. You save that one chunk of wood and you're like, I could use that for something someday. So you try to save as much solid stuff as you can, but I think at this point, I don't care. Like, it's quoted into the job. Machine that stuff away, make life easier on yourself. Don't go stand at the bandsaw.
Yeah. I hate running bandsaw as it is, so I'd rather let my machine run for an extra 10 minutes and cut something out than.
So we've got some end plates that we make. We make them at a 1/2-inch aluminum plate, 6061. And it'll be like a 12 by 12. I don't remember the exact dimension, but around 12 by 12. There's a few different sizes, but in that ballpark. But it'll be like a 4, 5, 6-inch hole in the middle of it. The way we used to do it was we would just ramp down the bore of that part, leaving 10 thousandths into a finish pass. But then we would save that slug. I bet we've probably got 500 of those slugs that we're never going to do anything with.
Yeah,
we keep saving them. We're like, maybe we'll have a project that works for them, or maybe we'll have some parts that come through that will fit these, slugs. And granted, I mean, they're sitting outside, off to the side, not taking up really any valuable space. It's not, hurting anything. So we leave it. But still, it's like, what the hell are you ever going to do with that? When are we going to use that? And although I will say there was some parts that popped up recently that would actually be perfect for it. And so I guess it does come in handy, because we're going to be able to make, I think it's like 10 parts out of these. But I mean, still in the end, you're saving these 500 slugs just to possibly use them for, like 10 parts.
Yep.
I'd rather just machine it all the way, which is the way we do it now. That's a repeat job that we do pretty frequently. And yeah, I'd just machine it all the way now. Just turn it all in chips. You don't have to worry about dropping, a random slug onto your way cover and jamming your way cover up or something.
I rarely even saw cut stuff now. I mean, I don't order bar stock. I typically, most of my jobs, I order plate cut to the size I need. So I'll shoot out an email of 50 different sizes. Sometimes I wonder if my vendor hates me when they get it, because it'll be, cut one at 1 inch by 3 inches by 6, and the next one's 1/2 inch by 2 by 3.
Yep.
50 different sizes, all plate cut.
Dude, I mean, if you can swing that, that's the way to go.
It is.
You make more money programming and running machines than you do cutting material. So if you don't have to cut material,
showing up on a pallet,
exactly,
ready to go.
And it's not like you got a saw boy,
Nope.
And even if you did, that guy could be making you money somewhere else.
Yeah,
I think sawing material is just dumb work, and if you can avoid it, it's good to avoid.
I mean, I could see if you got a automated saw and you need to cut 500 pieces, and you can set it up and just let it run.
Yeah.
You got a apprentice or a low man on the totem pole that can set it up and just. But then you gotta hit it with the wheel and take that edge off. Or most of the time I saw cut something, I put it in the vise and I'm like, oh damn it, that little edge is screwing me over now.
Yep.
Yeah, auto saws are real handy. We've got 2 of them. One of them stays busy on the big production job that we have. When we were doing a lot more work for a implement manufacturer, man, we would get in 20-foot sticks of like 7-inch steel round bar and drop it on the saw. And I mean, like a bundle of 3, our forklift can barely pick it up.
Yeah.
And, throw it on the saw and let it cut. And I mean, it's like, 6-7 minutes to cut. Just let the parts fall off in a hopper and, there you go. Versus it just depends on the vendor. Some places they'll upcharge you quite a bit for pre-cutting your parts, and then some it's well worth it. Because like for me, when it comes to stuff like that, there's a safety thing you got to consider when you get into literally trying to finagle around 2 tons worth of steel on a forklift. That's I don't like that. We don't do that anymore.
No, I worry about that with our guys, trying to maneuver that stuff around, moving, like 4-inch, 5-inch, even 7-inch round bar. And like that, in that size, we'll order 4-foot lengths just to make it more manageable for us. Because also we don't really go through that much of it. But even still, that some of that stuff is like right there at the size where you think you can move it by hand, or you try to move it by hand, or you don't take it seriously because it's not that big, but it's still big enough to jack you up.
Absolutely. Yeah. So thank you all for listening. We really would appreciate if you give us some good ratings.
Spotify, Apple, YouTube.
And Practical Machinist Forum if you want to chat.
Yep.
Follow up.
Yep.
Talk shit.
3D printing sucks. Tell us how dumb we are.
Right. Yeah, tell us we're stupid. You've been doing it for 30 years a different way, and that's the only way. In the future, there will be a forum on the Practical Machinist Forum. You can kind of follow up on episodes, ask questions. The 3 of us will be on there to either answer your questions or delete your comments, whatever, depending on how mean you are. You can find the 3 of us mostly on Instagram. Obviously, Brad, you'll find him as @marvelmachining. Cameron, you'll find him as @Machiningiscool. And you'll find me as @JobShopperTM. So we look forward to presenting another episode for you, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. All right, lads.
Cool.
Good job.
Good first episode.